Hi, this is Jim Coyne again from past history, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Evan Gendro, who's a candidate for the state representative position in Westport, and I'm going to ask him to identify himself. Pull the mic closer. Identify himself, and we'll go from there. Evan, floor's yours.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Evan Gendro. I'm running for state representative in the 8th Bristol District, which includes Westport and parts of Fall River, New Bedford, and Freetown. Just a little bit of background about myself. I was born in Fall River, but I now live in Westport. And I've been involved with the community for a long time. I worked on the U.S. Senate campaign where I traveled the state hearing from voters on different issues. I also worked at the Public Policy Center in Dartmouth, where I worked on community issues regarding economic development, education, housing, and I'm running to be a voice for change in the community.
Well, did you go to high school in Westport?
I did. I went to Westport High School, and I went to elementary in Fall River as well.
And were you involved in anything in Westport High School?
Yes, I was the school committee liaison on the board.
These
there.
are things I want to know.
Okay.
What did you
Perfect.
do in high school, in college, and committees and
Right.
organizations, and that's what we want to know.
Right.
And you went to what school, what high school? I mean, what college?
I spent a year at UMass Amherst, and I went to UMass Dartmouth, majoring in political science. I'm finishing up this semester, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And a lot of my work at the Policy Center was connected to my time at UMass Dartmouth as well.
So you've had time off because of the COVID-19?
Yes, it's all remote now. Yeah.
Yeah.
They switched to all remote, as did Westport as well.
Sure.
So it's an adjustment, but
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
working well. It's working well. Yeah.
Good. Now, what gave you the incentive to run for a state representative seat?
I want to be a voice for change in our community. There's a lot of issues that are at stake in this election, whether it's taxes or public safety or accountability and transparency. There's a lot of issues that voters are concerned about in the district, and I'm running to stand up for lower taxes, for increased accountability and transparency, and to support our public safety departments in our district.
Now, there are two cities involved, or parts of two cities, all of Westport
Yes.
and parts of Freetown. All right. Is there a difference in the needs and wants and desires between the towns and the cities?
There are, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a
Well,
very,
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's a very diverse district. So Westport is largely a rural and suburban community, and a lot of the focus here is on agriculture and farms and small businesses. A lot of folks here have their livelihoods in the farming community. And the needs in Fall River and New Bedford are much different. They're more urban communities, so they have inherently different concerns than the people in Westport and in Freetown as well. But an issue that we're hearing a lot across the board on the campaign trail is taxes. It's a big concern, especially during the pandemic. I mean, throughout the course of the pandemic, we've had over 1 million people unemployed in Massachusetts alone. So this is a time, I think, when lower taxes and decreased regulation is more important.
Lower taxes and decreased regulation doesn't change the needs of the people, though.
Yeah.
Now, would you have any wild idea, or have you thought of the amount of money the state is losing in taxes because of restaurants, merchandise, stores,
Yes.
the sales tax has to be surmountable. Have you given any thought?
It's-
I'm not looking for the exact amount.
Yeah. Well, and they estimate that the Retailers Association, the Restaurant Association, estimate that up to 30% of businesses between restaurants and retailers won't reopen in the state of Massachusetts. So that's a big concern, and it's a reason why we have to focus on issues like, if a business is starting up in the area, especially now, we've in our district, if there's a business starting up, it's important that they're not burdened by high taxes so they can employ the people that they need to, and also see more revenue in their company as well, because they'll give that back to their business and grow their business, which helps the district out a lot.
Now, you've done some studying as to what state representatives' duties are.
Correct.
I
Yes.
hope you have,
Yes,
because
I
if you haven't,
Yes.
you're going to realize
Yes.
that 65-mile drive in
Yes.
the Boston roadway is hectic. Is there any special committee you'd like to see you serve on because of your past history? And
Right. I would love to serve on the Education Labor Committee. I think that's a very important issue, education and also workforce development. I think a lot of our education policies need to be coupled with workforce development to make sure that we have the jobs available in our area. We have a relatively high poverty rate in Fall River and New Bedford, which are two cities in our district, and as state representative, I'd love to see that rate go down by growing businesses and getting people back to work, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic.
When we talk about education, I'm going to bring up, I am so much in favor of industrial or arts, crafts, and things. Westport did away with it years ago. And we have Diamond, which is overpopulated, or, you know, Westport only has so many people going there. How would you feel about the state trying to get some industrial trades or back into the school systems?
I think that's a great idea, and I think that's how we get industry and businesses back to our district. There's programs that are being started up, like in Greater New Bedford Vocational High School, for example, that have started up an adult program for vocations for people that have left high school but are looking for a place for training to work. And a lot of businesses in the area have identified needs in workforce training. So if we can identify those needs of employers in our district and train people in the trades that we need workers in, I think that's a great way to grow our workforce.
I think when I'm not looking for a job, but when you read the paper and the companies looking for people don't necessarily put them in the paper. They go out to these employment agencies and so forth. But from time to time, you see a lot of trades in the paper. And you only see them once or twice, and then they're gone, filled or whatever. And I'm looking at Westport. There's only so many professional jobs you can have. Right. But the others are wide open. And I'm so much in favor, and when you're on the education committee up in Boston, you're going to try and see that more trades and industrial arts are taught in schools, right?
Right.
I'm holding you to it.
Okay, that sounds good. And it's an important issue too, because there are jobs out there for people in trades. Like you mentioned, there's only so many professional jobs, desk jobs that are out there. And there are a lot of skilled work there's a lot of skilled jobs out there, a lot of trades. This area is known for, historically, being an industrial community, especially in Fall River. And if there's companies starting up but they can't fill positions because there isn't necessarily a trained workforce out there, then we need to be looking at what are the needs of our employers and how can we fill those jobs. Because if there's a growing population in our community that has that training, I think we're going to see an increase in jobs.
I'm going to use a family member of mine. I won't say who. He feels he helps the economy because he knows nothing about plumbing, electrical, carpentry, cement, any of the trades. So when he needs something done, he hires someone. Doesn't know anything. So he says to me, I'm helping the economy, But it's crazy.
It's very true, and those jobs don't go away. I mean, I don't think, at least in the foreseeable future, we're going to see automation of the job that a plumber does, and it's important work. I mean, it's work that can't be done remotely, even in a pandemic, right? So those jobs are here to stay, and it's important that we have positions to fill.
That's like I talked to some people, and they say they've been getting a lot of work done around the house now because the husband's home.
Right. Right.
And the contractors are the ones who normally don't do the work at their house because they're out getting paid to do the work somewhere else. So it's a crazy situation.
Yeah.
Now, getting back into the state rep.
Sure.
Is there any one particular thing that you would like to see accomplished during your first 2 years? Anything you've got your heart set on? I know there's many things.
Yeah, there are. I have high ambitions, and I want to accomplish a lot for the people of our community. But, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing, especially now, is money and support taken away from our public safety officers and public safety departments. So police and fire and medical staff. It's important that we support the officers and firefighters and what they do in our community, and I'd like to see that. And another issue that I think is also important is accountability and transparency. A lot of politicians will throw in those terms, you know, and they seem like broad concepts, but there are concrete things that we can do at the state level to increase accountability and transparency. An example is ending the exemption to the public records law in Massachusetts. The legislature is exempt from public records law, which is a hindrance to transparency. You know, requiring voice votes, so there are concrete ways that we can increase transparency on Beacon Hill.
They did change, I don't know if they changed it in Beacon Hill or not, but years ago, you had to be present to vote, and
Right.
didn't they change that to where you could do it on some kind of electronic system?
They've changed it to online because of the pandemic, yes.
Right, right.
They have.
One other thing,
And even with the way votes are done as well, if I could just piggyback
Yeah.
off of that, you know, there's a lot of votes that are taken without roll call up at the State House, which I think it's important to know how our representatives vote on both sides of the aisle, just so the voters have a choice and they know where their representatives stand on certain issues. We see votes that are rushed through the legislature without much time to vote on. The recent bill, S-2800, which was the Senate bill for police reform, was 75 pages long with 145 amendments, and senators were initially given 48 hours to read and vote on it. So I think there's a way that we can, that legislatures can come up with a way to give more time to read votes so it's not just pushed through the legislature without much thought given to it.
in my past history of employment, I had situations similar to that.
Right.
And I wrote several of them. And I used to tell the people, what matters most is the consensus and the comments at the end. All of this thing, Bill, but what does it mean? What does it say? You know? And I agree. In Congress, they've got things, and they're supposed to vote on it the next day.
Right.
And it doesn't work. Now, you did hit on public records law.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
Would you explain what that means? If somebody wanted to get a copy of a document that was passed in Boston by Boston City Council,
Right.
how would they go about doing that?
So municipalities are, you can send a request in, usually to a town or city board, and request records for a certain, whether it's a meeting or whether it's a vote on a certain board in a city or town. But at the state level, with the state legislature, there's an exemption there that bars or allows the legislature not to fulfill certain requests for public records. So committee meetings, the way that things were voted on committee meetings, who was present, things like that. So who was the schedule, even down to the schedules of representatives, is also part of that.
That is hidden?
There's an exemption to public records law, and
Yeah.
it's actually, Massachusetts is one of only 4 states in the country that public records law, there's an exemption there in the legislature.
And then they have so many days in which to get it to you when you request it?
Right, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would seem like if it's a public organization other than something for national security,
Right.
yeah, it should be available.
And it comes down to accountability, I think, at the end of the day. Ultimately, it's just knowing what the people that we the people of the district put into office, you know, the way they conduct their business, what they voted on. I think that's important that people know that information at the very least.
Those 3 words that you just used, we the people,
We the people.
goes back hundreds of years.
It does.
And wouldn't it be amazing if it's, I'm not talking about this, because it means so much. I'm looking at the territory of Westport, Fall River. Westport needs Fall River in so many aspects.
Right.
Freetown is really close to no, I guess it's closer to New Bedford. What parts would you have in Freetown and New Bedford?
It's precincts 2 and 3 in Freetown, and then New Bedford, it's 1, D, E, and F. So it's the northern part from the airport and the north up to
And
Freetown.
You understand that's up for redistricting next year.
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
because this is a census year, so they
Right.
usually redistrict after the
Right,
census.
the census, everyone should answer those.
That's very important as well for people listening. The census is very important. It has to do with getting funding to our communities, both at the federal level and the state level. State legislatures use it to allocate funding to different areas. So it's very important to fill out the census.
And I heard the other day that it's also important for someone who is not a citizen to fill out that census form, because it also assists the community
It does.
for that.
It
You know,
does.
by the number of people in the community, not
Right.
what party they're in or
Right.
whatever.
Party isn't recorded.
No,
It's not a
no.
partisan process. This is used by both sides of the aisle to determine where funding is needed, the number of people in a community, and it measures a lot of other things as well. It measures a lot of socioeconomic data.
Okay.
The Census Bureau uses that data to develop models that are used by research firms, used by policymakers. It lays out the information can be used to lay out data on poverty, on income, racial and ethnic makeup of a community. So these are very important numbers that our representatives use for policymaking.
People get them in the mail and they say, well, what's this? You know?
That's exactly right. It's easy to discard our mail, but it's important to look
and
through
this
it.
is why they have hired so many people to go door to door
That's right.
and whatnot.
And I think that in itself speaks volumes, that even during a pandemic, the Census Bureau is, in a responsible way, I'll note, going out and going door to door to people that haven't filled out the census to make sure that there is an accurate count. I think that speaks volumes to how important that is.
Now, you say you're going to be finishing up your senior year in UMass?
In just a couple of months, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what are you going to be, what degree are you going to have?
It's a political science degree.
You said that.
Yeah.
He did say that earlier, it's just that my age, I forgot it. But, you know, there's so much to do, and if you read the state charter, there's so many things that are old that aren't even in use anymore. And someone years ago wanted to review the charter for the state, and they said it takes too much time, too much money to do that. And I've never read it. I don't want to read it. But certain things that state reps or state senators can get into and make a name, not for themselves particularly, but for the item, for the object. And I'm looking forward to each 2 years, and it's a 2-year term, you
Right,
realize that.
right.
Would you like to see it 3?
I mean, I think I can get a lot accomplished in 2, but whatever the legislature decides on terms.
Yeah,
But 2 years it's a tough amount of time because there's a campaign to run. Usually, a lot of our representatives run for re-election. So
They start running for re-election the day after the election.
that's right.
They have to. I mean, it's a
Right,
crazy,
and it's
crazy
important
situation.
that our representatives spend as much time as possible within that 2 years to get as much done as they can for the community, and I think that's one of the things that I'm committed to if I get elected.
Now, you've been going door to door,
I have, yeah.
and how's your reception been?
The reception is very positive. So so far we've reached about 3,000 doors in the district. Myself and some volunteers that have committed to the campaign. The responses have been positive in each city and town that we've gone to, which I think speaks to the need for change and the need and people's support for a candidate that is a different voice for the community. I was born and raised in this district, and I'm proud to say, and a lot of the responses has been positive. Freetown, New Bedford, Fall River, and Westport so far. Each of the 4 communities we've got a lot of momentum on our campaign. People are receptive to our message. We've got a positive message, and we're reaching voters.
How many of those voters that you talked to in Fall River and Freetown know that they were at one time Freetown?
There aren't many.
Yeah.
There aren't many, and it's interesting too because the way that the district lines are drawn, a lot of people are unsure about the district they live in. So that's also an important issue to research for folks out there, which district you're in, because a lot of these districts are not only split at the state level but also at the federal level. So there's a Fall River. I'll use Fall River as an example. So there's the 8th Bristol district there. There's I think 2 or 3 more legislative districts. And then at the congressional level, it's split in half as well between the 4th and the 9th district. So it can be confusing, and understandably so, but it's important for everyone to know which district they live in, because it comes down to street level. The precinct lines are drawn, by a street, so your neighbor can be in a different district than you can. Yeah.
And a different town. That's like I was talking to someone one time, and I said the state of Maine was part of Massachusetts.
That's right.
And he said, it's impossible. It's so far away. I said, it was part of Massachusetts. We inherently gave it away.
Right.
I think wampum, we gave it away for that.
Yeah.
But it's exciting to be part of government, and when someone calls you, how accessible will you be to returning calls? And
That's one issue that I'm very proud of my record on. Running this campaign since December of last year, we've been at it for a while, and I personally respond if you call us. The phone number is 774-264-1973, and we have an email, info@evanforrep.com. Anybody that reaches out to us, even on Facebook Messenger, I'll respond directly. I've made a commitment to be accessible to the voters in our community. I respond to every message that I receive, every email, every phone call, and that's something that I'll carry through my term.
why did you pick 7-3? Is that the year of your birth? You went to
No, yeah.
1973? But, quite often you hear on the television, public radio, or whatever, they tried to call Congressman somebody or Senator somebody or whatever about a project that's taking place this Friday, and they called them on Monday, and
Right.
it takes place Friday, and then the person calls them back the following Monday after it occurred, because they're so busy,
Right.
You're saying that you would call and answer.
Yes, I've been very accessible to the residents of our community. I take meetings with just about everybody that requests one.
Yeah.
It's been everything from small business owners to folks who just have concerns of their own, just in family life, with seeing more of their paycheck taken away due to taxes, or they've lost their job. Small business owners that are struggling through the pandemic. So there's a wide variety of people that have reached out to me, and folks that I've met with personally, and I'll continue to do that.
It's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. It's a challenge, and it takes a lot of time management, but it's certainly doable, and I think it's something that we owe to the people that vote for us.
Time management is involved in keeping the records of what you're doing currently during the campaign, isn't it?
Yes.
The records and the documents and the...
It's a lot. So on top of the visible campaign that everybody sees and door knocking, there's also a lot of paperwork involved.
I know.
There's financial filings with and state ethics filings, and so it involves a lot. It's important that I'm lucky to have a great team, and if anybody out there is interested in joining, feel free to reach out to us. But we've developed a great team who have helped out with us along the way, and we're running a great campaign that's picked up a lot of momentum in the area, but it is a lot, as you pointed out. It's a challenge, but we're getting out there and working hard.
When you're out there meeting people for the very first time, they don't know you, you don't know them, but they know something about you by now,
Right.
How does that feel, meeting strangers? How do you handle that?
It's one of the most exciting things, I think, in the campaign is meeting people, because those are the people who will vote for you, and even if they don't vote for you, those are the people who you'll be serving if you get elected. So it's important that our elected officials meet the people that they're serving, and one of the things that I enjoy is hearing their stories as well. Whether they were a business owner or a teacher, a medical worker, a police officer. That's one of the most interesting parts of campaigning, I think, is seeing the diversity out there of people in the district. And especially in a district like this, where you have, urban cities and rural towns, the stories differ so much.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a great thing to see.
Talking about people asking you questions, did anyone ever ask you the question that I asked you earlier? If you're related to Father Gendro from the
Yes,
city?
I have gotten that question.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge, but I get asked that.
But you're not going to look it up?
I will. I'll look into it. I'll look into it. I'll look through the family books. Yeah.
it's a challenge that, we have in the town of Westport, we have probably, I'm going to be corrected on this, like 35 or 40 positions open on boards and committees.
Yes.
Maybe more. And I know when I was a selectman, I tried to get as many people appointed. People just don't come out. And then they say, well, how come he's on 2 or 3 boards? Well, no one else, What do you feel about citizen volunteering, even on, I don't know if there's any state boards they could volunteer for, but committees and so forth?
That's such an important question, and it's something that has to do with good government, just having citizens involved in government, because going back to we the people,
Right.
the government is made up of everyday citizens. That was the ideal that our founding fathers set out. So even at the local level, it's important that everyone gets involved. So, and filling seats that are open, because representation is so important at the local level. There are vacancies in town that I would love to see candidates run for and fill. And I would also like to see a lot more opposition, even at the state level. Massachusetts, Ballotpedia ranked competitiveness in state legislative elections. Massachusetts was ranked the least competitive in the nation in state legislative elections.
In other words, more re-elections.
Right, so there were incumbents that went unchallenged. The highest percentage of unchallenged incumbents is in the state of Massachusetts. In this seat, for example, the last time someone from the Republican Party ran was 1996 in a general election ballot. So it's been quite a while.
I don't even remember.
Richard Desjardins in 1996 ran.
Dick,
Yep.
yeah, the former selectman
Yes.
attorney. All right, I'm going to take you to something that happened in the past year here. The farming community question. Are you familiar with what they
Yes.
had the right to farm?
Yes.
They were looking at. Would you like to say something about the farming?
It's largely a town issue, but the state is involved at some capacity and I think one of the important things to note about that is the state has the barn books that they mandated for a lot of the farms in town. So a lot of those measures are in place to ensure accountability in the farming community. And I think a lot of farmers that I've spoken with at least, are very cooperative with the town and have committed to working with the town. It's unfortunate, the event that happened that prompted the vote to be brought, but a lot of the farmers by and large in our town are great people and run great businesses.
You see occasionally on the road, you see Westport as a right to farm community.
Yes.
You know what that means?
Yes. Yeah. And it's so important that there is a right to farm, because historically, even in Westport, farming in Westport are so deeply integrated, and it's great to see that's carried on, even with everything going on in areas around us. That we remain rooted in our roots in agriculture is great.
What is the, years ago, going back, was it the Westport turnip? Westport had a certain, not style, but a certain type of a turnip. And years ago, I don't know if it's still around. But Evan, is there anything else you'd like to cover? I tried to cover the things with the state, responsibility, getting back to people, working with different boards, and do you feel that you could work with, if you're on a committee and you're a Republican, that you could work with the Democratic people on the committee to resolve and come to a conclusion of something?
Yes, I'm dedicated to bipartisanship. Policy making requires that lawmakers look at a piece of legislation regardless of party and regardless of who sponsored it, and read through it and assess whether it's good for the residents of their community who elected them. And that's a largely nonpartisan process, going through and reading bills and deciding whether or not you agree with it and whether it would do good for the people of your town and your community. So I am dedicated to bipartisanship.
Okay. Well, I've got, let's see, it's a 2-year term, committee appointments, so forth, in the different communities. And I did want to ask you, and you did answer it, about Westport, Fall River, Freetown, and New Bedford. Each one relies upon the other. And you've got, in many situations, in my case, in your case, where I was a Fall Riverite, born in Corky Row section, and many years later bought a house in Westport, and I still love Fall River,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
That's one of the most interesting things, I think, is the interconnectedness of not only this district, but the South Coast as a whole.
Right.
There's a sense of community, even though we have a town like Westport and Fall River, which are juxtaposed, even being geographically so close, right? But there's such different communities, but there is a sense of interconnectedness within the district. That's great to see, yeah.
it means a lot.
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do now is look at that camera over there, take as much time as you want
Okay.
in asking the people for your vote. Asking people for their vote, not yours.
I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd because I will be a voice for change in our community. I'll stand up for a lower tax and regulatory burden on working families and small businesses. I'm going to work to increase accountability and transparency on Beacon Hill, and I'm committed to supporting public safety officers and public safety departments in our district. And I'm accessible to the voters of our community, and if you want to reach out to us, the phone number for our campaign is 774-264-1973. You can visit our website, www.evanforrep.com. Email us at info@evanforrep.com. Visit our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and reach out to us and connect with us.
All right. I just want to remind everybody, if you have not voted in several years, some of the polling places and the streets had changed a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. So if you're not sure of your polling location, call the register of voters and give them, where you live. They'll tell you the exact location. I hate to have you go to one and find out you're not registered there. You should be in a different location. And I believe the polls open, I don't know if, I thought it was seven state elections and national elections. They close at 8. And be sure to vote, and be sure to tell your neighbors and everybody else. And I'd like at this time to thank Valerie Bain, who has been very patient with the past years of political interviews. And I never see her smile or smirk with anything that's said. So there's a smile right now. Okay, we want to thank you, Evan. I want to thank you for coming in, and best of luck to you. And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.